Yeah, first, thank you very much for the invitation. And I thought, so what kind of small presentation? We just have 25 minutes. And now we all know there's a big discussion about the Brexit. So I call this presentation the Maxit, the mental exit, because I think we have to leave this system. And so I want to invite you, let's say, for a kind of a mental journey for 20-25 minutes. So just relax, and let's make a kind of a mental journey. So what you see is sustainability. I mean, sustainability is not the solution for everything. Sustainability is about optimizing the system. And if you optimize something, less energy, less material, then at least you know it's getting very, very expensive. The stepping forwards are getting smaller and smaller. And at the very end, you realize nothing changed. So then you start to manipulate. And the manipulation, we know it from the German automotive industry. So we know exactly sustainability is not changing the system. What is changing the system is circularity. This is something completely different, because circularity means we have to design a new system. So we are not optimizing the old system. There's nothing wrong with this, but this is a completely different level. And I just want to explain the difference between circularity and sustainability. We know it's now exactly 5 years ago, the big conference in Paris. And you know, if your partner has an alcohol problem and she or he is promising you, you know what, in 2050, I will stop drinking for 87%, you will leave the relation. So that means we have not to do what is possible. We have to do what is really necessary. So it's all about mind change. It's not about climate change. And we all know this fantastic photo, the first photo, which is taken by a human being from Moon, from planet Earth. The whole sustainable movement started after Christmas night, 1968. And we as humanity, we get aware, wait a minute, this fragile buffet, this round table is not from Shell, it's not from Facebook. This round table is from no one called Earth. And you know, when you're somewhere when nothing is from you, you know, hey, I'm a guest. I'm not the host. So the question is how to be a guest on planet Earth. And if you're a guest somewhere, you want to know, so what are the rules? I mean, one of the house rules of planet Earth is it's a closed system. What we have, we have. What we don't have, we don't have. So we have to take care for everything what is on this round table, which is serve life for us. And there's another house rule, our being is temporary. I mean, if you don't yet, but it's 100% sure that even you, everybody from you, will leave this planet not alive. It's impossible. It's completely sure. So our being is temporary. That means all our needs are also temporary, but the consequences of temporality is permanent. They have every year they have a huge discussion in the municipality of Cairo, and they talk about the maintenance budget. And then someone is asking, yeah, who gave in Allah's name the permission? We have to pay now since 5,000 years the maintenance because someone thought it was a good idea to make this strange architecture 5,000 years ago. So we have to get aware that needs are temporary, but the consequences, how we serve the needs, they're permanent. And we know it from the car. So you see, if you drive a car, if you're too busy with hindsight and not with forethought, you have a huge problem. So, and then the consequences are permanent. So that means real estate doesn't exist because real estate is a temporary answer for a temporary need. So real estate is mobile estate. So circularity means to create a temporary aggregate. because every building is a temporary aggregate. And what does it mean to create a temporary aggregate? I mean, in art, we know, in art, we never say there's a scarcity of Rembrandts. We all know, hey, wait a minute, this beautiful painting is part of those limited editions from Rembrandt. So if we know that something is limited, we don't talk about scarcity, then we talk about a limitation, and then we talk about limited edition. That means there is no scarcity of material on this planet because all materials are a limited edition. And then the question is, how can we facilitate something in an unlimited way, which is limited? In nature, it's the sun, it's an unlimited source. And the sun is coming back every year and is creating, together with the apple tree, a new apple. So the unlimited source sun makes the limited processes in nature unlimited available. We call this the seasons. And then the question is, yeah, who or what is then the sun for the second nature? In this case, architecture. And the sun in the second nature is data. Everything what has a data has an identity. If you have an identity, you know where it is. And if you know where it is, it's always available. So circularity means also hosting the limited editions to get aware that everything is limited and that there's no scarcity. Then we have some products like this. It's a beautiful light bulb. It's shining since nearly 120 years. It's from 1901. It's still working. And Philips was realizing in 1924, so let's say 23 years after the production, they said, oh, wait a minute. We create a solution. How stupid. Because if we sell a solution, the consumer is not coming back. We should create an organized problem. So they found Osram and they had a meeting, what you can see here on Christmas night, 1924 in Geneva, very close to the FIFA. And that's a good place to make this kind of arrangements. And they started the 1,000 committee, the 1,000-hour committee. So they made an agreement that they will manipulate all the light bulb production in a way that every light bulb has a final breakdown after 1,000 hours. So new doesn't exist. New means it's not yet broken. So it's impossible to buy something new. This is an illusion. We have a business models where we have separate power and responsibility. Power for the producer, responsibility for the consumer. And the consumer, he has no clue that he's buying an organized problem. To solve this, we introduced 8 years ago light as a service. You see here the airport from Amsterdam. So it's a temporary aggregate because they will use it for 15 years. And we need for 24 hours, 7 days a week, we need light. So we had 125,000 light hours. And then we said to Philips, you know, we are completely fed up with the organized problem. We don't want to have this here. You get one chance, you can deliver us light. And if you need lights to deliver us light, we can talk about it. And if you need electricity, or maybe you need white wine or red wine or kerosene to run your lights, I have no clue, then it's completely sure the electricity bill is for you and not for us. So what happened, the energy consumption was getting down for 1/3. And suddenly Philips showed up with a light system which doesn't exist until that moment. It was running for 15 years. So if we bring together power and responsibility on that side where you can arrange something, that means on the producer side, then we get completely different business models. So circularity means also new business models. And then let's have a look at waste. Waste is material without an identity. And then we thought, okay, maybe it's a good idea to give all materials in a building a documented identity, because if the materials, if they have a documented identity, there will never be waste. So in the first building 7 years ago, we start to make all this endless spreadsheets, Excel sheets. And then we realized, wait, the surface of planet Earth is also limited. And because it's limited, we have the cadaster. The cadaster is the library for the limited surface of planet Earth, not to get in trouble. So that's why we started Madaster, the cadaster for material. And Madaster will eliminate waste for 100%. Then the funny thing is, if you know what kind of materials you have in your building, and so it's a public online platform. We started 4 years ago in the Netherlands, and last week we had an agreement with Germany and with Norway. So next year we go to Germany, to Austria, to Norway, hopefully to Denmark, I hope, and maybe also to Taiwan and Belgium. But the main thing is that if you know the material, then you know what is the value of the materials and what will be the value of the materials in the future. So the incentive is, the financial incentive is that the depreciation of a building is not going back to zero, it's going back to the minimum value of the materials in the building. So this is a huge financial incentive. So waste is material without identity, and if you want to know more about it, you can have a look at www.madaster.com. So circularity means also to eliminate waste for 100% and not for 89, or, I mean, is anyone from you here now in this meeting not for 100%? Yeah, some are for 0%. But if you're in the meeting, you're there for 100% and not for 80%. So it's very easy to do something for 100%. And if you inventorize the material afterwards, it's a material mine, like this building from a client from us. So we made a passport in 1 week, and then we used all those materials for 92% in the new building. And this is the new building. So it's 92% of everything what you have seen before. And in the forward direction, then we create a material depot, because then we know, wait, this is a temporary aggregate. There's a moment nobody likes the building anymore. So then we have to take it out, and then we have to create a material depot. And of course, I mean, it's energy positive. This is not a big deal to make an energy positive building. So this is a material depot. And if you go one step further, then we talk about a material bank. And what you can see here, the value of materials are accountable. So this will be the first building in the world where the value of materials are accountable. They will be written down in the balance sheet of our user. And in this case, it's a bank. It's the Triodos Bank, the most sustainable bank in the world. And it's a wooden building with a wooden core. We do that in 13 months. And if you create a depot, then you don't build a building, but then you organize a logistic process with a result, a building. Traditionally, we need 18 months to create this depot, but because we organize the logistic process, so it's 13 months. It's a completely remountable building. We need 165,300 Schwab screws to screw the building, because there is a moment when we want to take out all the materials again. And the German forest, because it's a wooden building, just need 11 minutes to grow the used wood quantity. It can be very big, like this office building, 2,000 to 1,200 square meters. And I talk about circular potential. A circular building doesn't exist. You can create a building with the circular potential, but it depends on the future generations if they want to activate the potential or not. They still can throw it away. So the only thing we can do is to create a building with 100% circular potential. And this is a bird watching post in the south of of the Netherlands. And this is a social housing project. We just start in January to realize it in Amsterdam. So it's completely in wood, and it's prefabricated. And what you see, of course, if you do it in wood, it's a CO2 positive building. It's a store of CO2. So circularity means to organize the logistic process designed as a material depot and managed as a material bank. And let's come to the end. You all know the 17th development goals. I mean, this is a fantastic initiative from the United Nations. And but I was 2 years ago, I was invited for a lecture by the United Nations, and they asked me, okay, if you study the 17th, they all talk about the how and the what, but what is the why? And if you don't know the why, what the hell are you doing then? So I offered the 18th SDG, and the 18th SDG is about attitude and humanity. It's about the relation between us and everything what makes our life possible, because this relation is not okay. It's not in balance. And the 17th SDG, we need to fix the relation between us and nature, because we know in those days, that's why we are not sitting in a room, the last veto is always for nature. And the last I want to say, just be aware that we are not human beings on a spiritual journey, but we are spiritual beings on a human journey. So circularity means hosting humanity, hosting those spiritual beings as a guest on planet Earth. And then we know maybe then the real change is just mind change, and material matters. So that was our very quick journey about several. There are some more steps, and you can read this. We have it also now in German, so you can read all about the 7 steps to get there in the book Material Matters. So anyway, thank you very much, and I will give back to David.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you. And even in the short amount of time, I know I've been really impressed, and that I've got quite a few questions in my mind. But the next part of the know-how session is where we bring together our architect, Thomas, yourself, with the manufacturer, because we believe that there needs to be a discussion there. And I think this is certainly the case, and you've mentioned it yourself, in these processes that there needs to be collaboration between all parties. So I'd like to ask, or first of all, welcome Tina Snedke Christensen from Trolltech in Denmark. I'd like to welcome her to the floor. And perhaps, Tina, you may have a short response or even some questions for Thomas, maybe in relation to your situation from the manufacturer's point of view. I mean, looking at, say, the passport system, which Thomas was talking about, is this something that you see is possible from your side to achieve?
Yes. Well, thank you very much, David. And thank you for having me here, and thank you very much.
Tina, are you there?
I'm sure she will be back.
We don't hear her.
Right now, gone. But she will be back. She will be back.
Okay, but perhaps just while we're waiting on Tina, I'm not sure what's happened there. Thomas, your point about Philips and the lighting, the kind of a leasing system for lighting, for want of a better word. Philips is a large company. I'm sure they can achieve those kinds of requests. There are a lot of smaller sized companies in the building and construction industry. How do you see it that they can achieve, or they can be part of this process and still react in a positive financial manner?
Yeah, I mean, just to be clear, that I'm not talking about leasing contracts. I'm not talking about leasing. This is something completely different. So we introduced this after the Second World War because we want that the people are more consuming. So if you talk about leasing, that means let's say a car industry is producing a car. The car is sold to the financial institute, and then the financial institute is pushing the car along with a leasing contract in the market. But the financial institute, they can change the product car. So they buy a car with all the organized problems. So what I mean is that the producer by himself, like Volvo, and Volvo is the first company in the world which are serving a car service-based, the XC40. It's a completely different car. They eliminate all the organized problems, and then they push it in the market service-based. And then the CEO of Volvo, he was explaining, he said in an interview, you know, in the past, we were a car producer. Now we are a mobility provider. So they changed their system completely. And to come back to Philips, I think it's even easier for the small companies than for the big companies to change their business models. So we have here a lot of startups. They're not even think about to sell a product. They all offer a service. And what you also see, if the product is a very high quality product, then it's very easily to push it in the market with a service contract. So you even have companies who can get a facade service based, you can get a floor service based, you can get all the interior service based, the lighting system, the sanitary, the tiles. So in fact, everything is now service based, but then you have to organize your whole process in a completely different way. And what we know is in the building sector, everything is completely not transparent. That's the business model they want to handle. But in the new world, everything has to be completely transparent, because in the circular economy, we are not serving ownership, but we have to facilitate responsibility in the chain. And this is something, for some companies, this is very, very uncomfortable, because they think then the risk is higher than in the past, but it's exactly the opposite. Okay.
Thank you, Thomas. I think Tina is back with us.
I'm back. I'm so sorry. My computer chose this very moment to make an automatic Windows update and just closed down. I'm so sorry.
No worries.
So now I missed the past few minutes, so I really don't know how you have been.
Look, we were being very improvisatory. Basically, as you fell out of the session, I was just asking Thomas regarding his point about how can smaller companies also react in this level, and maybe look, we'll get into the conversation between yourself and Thomas now. Just from listening to Thomas's presentation just now, what have you got any views from your own side as a manufacturer? Any questions?
Well, absolutely. First of all, I found it a very great presentation, and I absolutely back the points that Thomas presented today. However, I've heard a few other presentations with Thomas, and there the issue of leasing was presented as one of the big solutions. And I'd rather like to challenge that just a little bit, because we have a product that has a very long lifetime, at least some 50 years. That's what they say if you look up into some database, but we have produced similar panels since 1935. So we actually have a lot older panels at our factory in Denmark. I would much rather than than leasing, I would rather prepare a product with a circular potential, meaning that we don't know what's going to happen in the future. We don't know what's happening in 50 years, but if we ensure that we have safe products with a circular potential, then I think that would what I would prefer rather than leasing just the value of the products. I'd like to hear what you think of that, Thomas.
Yeah. Now I think those acoustic panels you produce, I think they're in the background of you, huh?
They are, yes.
So we can see them. Okay, so then everybody knows a little bit about what kind of products are we talking? And I think
some panels from our new design line. That's this design. Yes.
And they're all they are cradle to cradle certificates.
Yes, they are.
Okay, so they are non-toxic. So at least you have a very high quality product. And I just mentioned when you was updating your office program, we talked about the difference between leasing and service. So leasing means it's the ownership from the product is by the financial institute.
Did we now?
Okay, now he's gone. Tina, you have now more time for you. Enjoy.
Thank you. I think Thomas is back.
Thomas,
okay.
Now he's back. He's back.
I was there. Everybody's frozen now here.
We couldn't hear you. Now we hear you again.
Can you hear me again?
We can.
Okay. So shall I repeat the difference between lease and service?
Oh, yes, please. Yes, please.
Okay. So lease means that a financial institute is getting the ownership of a product and is pushing it in the market. But the financial institute, they can't change the product.
No, that's right.
So they can't eliminate problems.
Yes.
So the producer, he's the only one who can change the product, and then he's pushing it as a service on the market. So the producer, he is he's the owner of the product, and he's offering a service. And I mean, maybe you have an iPhone, Tina, or a telephone, I have to say. Yeah, and I think you change it at least, let's say, 3 times in the last 10 years. That's right?
That's right, yes.
Okay. But they're still working, so they were not broken. So why didn't you use them longer?
Oh, they were broken.
Of course, they were.
Yes.
But the frequency of innovation is getting higher and higher.
Yes, I can totally follow you, Thomas. It's just that we are a medium-sized company, and I don't know how it is in Holland or the rest of Europe, but at least in Denmark, most companies in Denmark are actually small or medium-sized companies. We have a very few global actors in Denmark, but if you push back the ownership to the producer, then you expect the producer, the manufacturer, to be around in 15 years, in 20 years, in 50 years. But I just don't see manufacturers having trucks driving around Europe collecting secondhand products to get them back and to resell them. I would much rather try to transform the system that already is there, because you have a demolition industry, you have a waste industry. If we as a manufacturer can facilitate a system where we can actually show it's much better to use these panels when they are no longer feasible for acoustic panels, that it's much better to use them as raw material in cement with a local cement producer than it is to bring them to incineration. That's where I see our task.
Yeah, but to bring it back, I mean, but if you would take the responsibility for that, then it's 100% sure that your products will never get waste.
But I'm not sure I'll be around in 50 years.
That doesn't matter. I mean, the owner. I just pay this. No, I just pay the service contract with you. Yes. And if you're not there, someone else will take your responsibility, and you still keep the ownership of material.
But there are so many companies that are not around anymore. If you look 20, 30 years back, we have the issue today when we produce Acoustic panels and we made an EPD, a declaration. We declare exactly what is in our panels. But when we get to the take back, we have to declare what we do with waste materials, with used materials today. They were produced some 20, 30, 40 years ago, not by us, maybe by other manufacturers that are no longer around, or by competitors in the industry. And that's why we're trying to facilitate a take-back system that is not just for the biological circle, but is also in the technical circle, so that we don't bring unknown substances back to nature. But you see, if I look back, there are so many companies that are no longer here. And if I look into the future, I'm pretty sure there'll be a lot of companies that are no longer there. And that's my question. That's why I question the leasing or the service contract.
I mean, all the free record shops, they're closed.
Pardon?
Nobody wants to have a CD. The free record shops.
Yes, exactly.
Nobody wants to have a CD. We have Spotify. I mean, so
yes.
And
you're right.
So this what will happen in the building industry. So we have to change the system. And if we see some problems, okay, then we have to solve it.
Yes.
But we have to facilitate responsibility and not ownership, just to be sure that nothing is getting lost.
Exactly. But I'd rather.
And of course, for some product, but I can tell you, I showed you the example for the material mine.
Yes.
We took out all acoustic panels, all of them, 100%.
Yes.
We paint them again and we bring them back in the new building. And that was even cheaper than to buy new acoustic panels.
Yes, and that's done a lot of times with our panels as well. And I think that's much more sustainable just to use them for much longer. But it's more like it's
sustainable, but
it's not circular. But it's reuse. Oh no, you're frozen again, Thomas.
If it's circular, there's no end. If it's sustainable, there's an end.
Exactly.
So you have to be sure what happened. I mean, of course you can use it, but what happens at the very, very end?
Yes.
If you're not happy, it's not the end.
That's
why
we're
the
trying
only
to
one who can organize it is the producer.
Yes, but the question is, should we organize
consumer,
it or should we facilitate it? I think we need to don't want to oversee the system that is there, because we are manufacturers. We're not a demolition company. We're not a logistics company. We're not a waste company. We have to change the mindset of those facilitating those industries. We have to cooperate. We have to work together. We have to find new ways of working together, because we still want to produce panels. We don't want to collect or demolish buildings. We don't want to collect waste. That's not our core business. Thomas, are you still there?
It looks like we have a few internet problems at the moment. I'm not sure whether that's a Dutch thing, a Danish thing. I hope you can all hear me at the moment in Berlin. While we're waiting for Thomas, look, I think this is a really interesting discussion, and I think if I've understood correctly, Tina, what you've just brought up is that point of, we also, I think, particularly for the architect, they need to know that the builders, the people who have decided, I'm going to build this building, how do the architects convince them in a way to go in a circular direction?
Yes.
And I think that's from my point of view, that's the real key to bringing this forward. And I'd really be, maybe before we go into our breakout sessions, we can even ask the audience if they've had any experience in that. How have you got strategies where you are able to convince the builders to go more in this circular direction? Or Thomas, you're now with us again. I mean, we would like to discuss this later on, but I think now that we're dealing with a few issues, let's just keep in the conversation. Thomas, what would you say to that question? I mean, the architects are here in the room. They're wanting to build circular, but in the end, it's the in German we say Bauherren, and even though I'm Australian, I'm lost for words for the English word for that.
Client, I think.
the client. Thomas, what would you say to that?
First of all, I mean, in the Netherlands, we have a law next year that every new building has to have a material passport. So I think it's very important that the government is facilitating the new market by law. This is very important. Secondly, so now we are that far with the big five that we can make the value of the material accountable. And this is very, very important for our clients, even if they don't know what circularity is or whatever it is, we don't care. But wait a minute, if there's any financial incentive to what you call a circular building, then we are open for that. So I think we have to show the financial incentive of this new way of thinking, and then we can trigger the market. And at least we have in Madaster, we have a circular index, so you can see what is the circular potential of the buildings. And we have clients, they say, okay, but at least we want the minimum is that we want to have 83% index of circularity in our building. And I think that's a new market. But I think the second argument is the most important one. If we can show the financial incentive of this mind change, it will never fly.
Okay. Have we got anyone in the room that might have a question? We had a couple of questions in the lead up to the event, more in the area of carbon tax, Thomas. So there are a couple of people here asking questions regarding carbon taxes. Maybe I can ask Davide Peruzzetto, you had a question which you sent us via email. Maybe that's also relevant at the moment.
Yes, hello, do you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, Thomas. Yeah, so
Hi,
my
David.
question, hello. Yeah, my question was, there's right now at the moment, there's a lot of talking about carbon taxes. How can we reduce the amount of CO2 in the air? And one of the policies that are being discussed at the moment are carbon taxes on materials. And they sound, well, interesting, they could work, but the industry will say, hey, if you put a tax on material, you will kill the producers as well. And it's can be such a fast-paced process, the one of putting carbon tax. I don't know, what do you think about this? Is this a way to go? It is not. It's very difficult for me to understand if it could work or not.
David, do you think the lockdown is a good idea?
Sorry, Thomas, the lockdown, well, it is not. Yeah, it is. It's not, it is a good idea. I do believe it's a good idea. It's not funny at all. It's not easy at all.
Okay, so we do what is necessary, and we're not doing what is possible. And the government is not a company. So we have to be guided by the future. So we have to set up what is really necessary. And of course, always there's someone who doesn't like it. But of course, we need a carbon tax. We need a tax on material. We don't need any tax of work, because work is unlimited, but material is limited. So we should put tax what is limited and what is not good for the environment, and not put tax of something which is unlimited. And the government has to take the leadership. They have to introduce what is necessary, because everything what is possible is running by the market. So we don't need the government for that, but we need the government for the new things, what is really necessary. And financial wise, the lockdown is a disaster. Yeah, but we have to do it because it's necessary.
But Thomas, just for end this conversation, I will give space to the other members of the conversation. But yes, what if, let's say that Europe decide to put a policy on it, but what if another country outside Europe won't do the same? we will be
Yes.
in a sort of disadvantaged position, aren't we?
Yeah, and that's why we have extra responsibility. And the history shows that you just need one person to change the whole system. And you can see that in the States also. So we just need one human being to change the system. This is the potential we have as a human being. This is the potential you have. So use potential and don't hide yourself around the others.
May I add a comment to this issue as well? Would that be okay?
Yes,
Please.
please.
Yes,
Please.
because we are actually producing a new EPD at the moment, our environmental product declaration. That's where you sort of define the carbon, the CO2. And even if we're producing it after the European standard 15804, we have realized that there are still so much room for interpretation that depending on how you balance input and output, you get very, very, very different outputs. And I think we really need to have the same way of measuring. We really need to work so much more on those standards so that we know what we're actually, we're declaring, and eventually how we're paying these taxes. I think there's a big job to be done there.
I fully agree, but the reality is that we don't want to have it clear.
Pardon? Don't want to have it.
If you say, no, we don't, because everybody wants to have his own interpretation.
No, I just want the same interpretation.
I know.
That is it.
Yes, I agree with this, but now it's organized in a different way. They suggest there's a standard, but it's not, because everybody can interpret it by himself. So I fully agree with you.
That's good.
I would love to keep this conversation going, and we certainly will, but as I mentioned to our guests in the Welcome Lounge, the know-how session is also a lot to do with interactivity. And so what we'd like to do now is break ourselves into two groups where everyone can have a chance to give their opinion, ask questions, etc. I believe Fermin will be doing this for us right now, and then we'll continue the discussion there. And remember, if there's a pause in the conversation, jump in, ask a question, or give your opinion. Looking forward to it. Just a quick wrap up. I mean, Tina, maybe if you'd like to give a quick wrap up about what we were just talking about. We went into the topic of longevity and recyclability. There was not enough time.
No.
I have to say that, but that's how it is these days in the digital world. Let's hope that we can get back to meeting in person. But perhaps if you can give a 30-second wrap up.
Yes. Well, we had the discussion about reuse versus recyclability, stating that recycling should only be the option at the end of the life cycle, when you can no longer reuse, because we should have products with such a high quality that they can be reused, being it building materials or interior materials. And then we also talked about the building's lifetime, that we actually see it as an issue that you calculate with only 50 years of a lifetime for a building. We should be able to do better than that. We can also produce materials that last longer than 50 years, and then we should have buildings that last longer.
I know that last point about the building lifetime, I mean, that's something that's a big issue. I know here in Germany, in German one says Bauen im Bestand, and it's about how do we use the buildings we have now and make them last longer and more, I guess.
Actually, it's said that the most sustainable building is the one that you don't build.
Yeah. Thank you, Tina.
Thank you.
Do you know that there was a law in East Germany? There was a law in East Germany, and it was written, if you produce something in East Germany, you have to show that it will work at least for 25 years. If it was not working for 25 years, you get no permission to make the product. It was exactly the other way around. because there was not enough material in East Germany, so they want to be sure if we do something, it should join us at least for 25 years.
And this is also that mindset you were talking at the very beginning. It's, I mean, we do need a change in mindset.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So now, Thomas, your conversation, your breakout session, what did you talk about?
I mean, I think the biggest concern is how to stimulate the architects, how to stimulate the clients, how to stimulate developers. So, I mean, I think everybody was convincing that we have to do it, but how can we get the permission as a designer so that we can do what is possible? And so one is already mentioned. Then we said, okay, there's a huge financial incentive for a circular building with a circular potential. And then it's not important how long we use the building, for 3 days, 30 years, or 300 years, if we can take out all materials one by one without losing value. So no depreciation until zero. And the other one is that in the future, maybe we should every building owner has to be a landlord for his building. So if you ask a permission for a building, then you have to take care for the building for at least 30 years. And if you have to take care for something for 30 years, you make completely different kind of decisions. So we just have to change the rules of the game.
Bravo.
Yes. So, Thomas, it's 6:15 now, so it's the end of our scheduled session. I would just like to thank both yourself and Tina for being here, for taking the time, for sharing your expertise. Like I said in the beginning, there are a lot of newcomers to this topic here this evening. So it's really good to see that there's interest there, that people want to be doing something. Now we just need to change the mindset and work together to achieve our goals. We actually had this morning a short competition, and I have 2 winners, but they have to be here, so I hope they are. We have 2 copies of Thomas's book, Material Matters, to give away. And the first person who has won was actually Davide. Are you still there? Okay, Davide, are you still there?
I am.
Okay, great. Well, we'll organise sending the book out to you. Congratulations. And then the other person was Janina Nipa. I'm not sure if she's here.
I'm here.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Congratulations. We'll get in contact.
Do you have the German or the English version, David?
We have both.
We have both.
Okay. Good.
Yeah. So congratulations to both of you. Thanks for taking part, and I hope that for everyone here this evening, it's been a worthwhile hour and a half discussing this topic. One thing that came up was that concept of collaboration. So, you know, it's not just architects, manufacturers, builders, you know, we should all be working together. And that's actually really interesting because just to give you a heads up, our next Architects Know-How session is planned for the 18th of January with Jette Hopp from Snøhetta. And she's going to be discussing exactly that topic of collaboration and their concept of how they work with all parties involved in the project. So I do hope that you can all be a part. We will certainly send you through some further information from ourselves regarding that, as well as information on that very hard word, Trolltech, and the company, but maybe you can have a look and see what they're doing. And we would also like to ask Thomas if you can decide that later. If possible, to share the recording of this, which we will obviously professionally edit and send through to you for approval. But if that's okay, we'll organise that. But we'll communicate that with everyone over the next days. Anais, Fermin, have I missed anything?
No, not from my side. It was perfect. It was great that you all stayed in the room and for the discussion, and we would be happy to see you again soon. Just register again. You can also see it on LinkedIn and Instagram. There we always announce our next speakers. Thank you very, very much, Thomas and Tina. If you could just stay in the room until everybody else is gone. And we're wishing you Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. And we're hoping to see you all again.